Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Talos of Tech, live on Twitch. And where's the Apple Foldable? I'm still waiting on it. That's my response, by the way, to the people who have been commenting now for over 2 years. I found a comment and screenshotted it ever since the original video I ever made on foldables. This was before Galaxy Fold was even a thing. This was years before the Galaxy Fold was even a thing. Back in 2017, I think it was around September. I made a video saying, is foldables going to be the next big thing? Is this where smartphones are headed? And in that video, I explained that no, I don't think they are. I don't think this is where the future is. I think it's something for people to get excited for because we, as a consumer base, have a fascination with displays. Anytime we can get, bezels thinner, or we can get displays folding or bigger, or TVs and stuff like that, we just love displays doing something that's different. Most of the time, if a phone doesn't change its display year over year, you'll get a bunch of people saying that there was no changes. Basically, there were no changes. Nothing happened because the display didn't change. So that's why a lot of people will look at the iPhone 6, 6S, and 7. Those are all basically the same phone. Or the 10, 10S, and 11. Basically the same phone, right? Because the display didn't change. So, as long as it doesn't change on the front, basically nothing changed at all. I don't agree with that, by the way. But, even in that video back then, I was getting comments from people saying, just wait till Apple does one, he'd love it. Just wait till Apple does one, he'd love it. And my response has not changed, which is, I don't think they will. I could be wrong on that, but I really don't think they will. And you can look at Apple's historical usage of two-in-ones is what I would kind of consider the foldable, because I did my whole review on the Z Flip. It's charging back there. I still have it. But I did my whole review on the Z Flip, and most people did not have functional or logical counterpoints to my video as to why the clamshell foldable actually is the future, or this is where foldables are going to go. Most of the comments in response I got on the Z Flip review were people saying, yeah, I don't think the clamshell foldable, I don't think this is it. I don't think this is the future, but I do think foldables are still coming. It just has to be some type of phone that unfolds into a tablet, not a phone that just happens to fold and has a tiny display on the outside, which is interesting. I found that response interesting because originally, when the Galaxy Fold came out, there was a similar reaction. A bunch of people saying, yeah, foldables, this is it. This is the future. But once the Galaxy Fold started flopping and everything, everyone was like, well, this isn't it. But foldables are the future. But that's not it. That's not the right one. Or then the Motorola Razr comes out and everyone's like, no, that's not it. So now we've got the Z Flip and people are saying, no, this isn't how foldables are going to be. So the conclusion I've realized from this is that there are people that are convinced foldables are coming, and when I say foldable, I'm not referring to a device with a hinge on it. I'm not counting laptops. I'm just counting devices with displays that warp back and forth. You know what I mean? Like the Galaxy Fold, the Z Flip, that kind of thing. I don't count the Surface Duo or the Surface Neo. Those have lines down the middle. That's just a dual display device. It's not a foldable. But it seems like people don't exactly know what they want when it comes to foldables. They can't decide. They can't figure out what exactly it is, but they just know they're coming. They're the future. There just hasn't been a proper implementation yet. And while I do agree that if Apple did make a foldable, they would probably have the best one because they have the most solid software for tablets and smartphones, whereas the companies that are trying to make tablets that fold into phones right now, they're not known for their solid tablet designs of user interface or hardware. So Samsung with the Galaxy Fold, Samsung's not really known for making that great a tablet, and Huawei is also not known for making that great a tablet, especially when it comes to software. Hardware, okay, sure, they're fine, but the iPad is still king in that department. Let me catch up here in the chat. Yi Hirasawa subscribed with Twitch Prime 17 months. Holy cow, thank you for your support, appreciate that. Chris Norton 2000 just dropped in with a 1,000-bit donation. Wow, that's $10. Thank you very much, Chris. I greatly appreciate it. And CWAB subscribed with Twitch Prime. Joined a bit late. Let's go 6 months. All right, 6 months of Twitch Prime. That means you get your Face ID badge. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Mate X seems interesting. I still have my doubts about the Mate X. To me, it's taking the most fragile part of the device and wrapping it on the exterior, which sounds like a terrible idea to me. Um, Now, I haven't had any durability issues with my Z Flip, but my Z Flip display is folded up most of the time. When I'm using it, it's unfolded, but outside of that, it folds up, and it has a little gap in between, but it's still, for the most part, not really exposed to the elements like the Mate X. I guess it's the XS would be. So I have my worries about the Mate XS, and the main issue I have with it is immensely too expensive. Just far out of the price range of even possibly being the next big thing. The original iPhone, it was a bit more expensive than traditional phones, but not by that much. I believe the Mate XS was coming in at over $2,500. We're not even in the right ballpark. We're not even the right city of price point that this is going to be a mainstream thing. That is basically a R&D department selling their prototypes. That's essentially what it is. I mean, it's even if it's a solid product, that price point is alone going to kill the thing. Tablets barely sell over $1,000. Barely. There's a small sliver of iPads that are the 1 terabyte configuration with cellular that slightly surpass that $1,000 price mark, but very small portion of that market, and we're talking about surpassing. Sorry, I meant $2,000. The iPad Pro 1 terabyte cellular comes pretty close to 2,000, but most people aren't buying that one. So yeah, the Mate XS being 2,500 is way out of the price range of anyone considering. Let's see, 233 bits donated from CWABs. Thank you very much. We got Mess00 with the Twitch Prime sub for 13 months. Holy cow. And Kamal Basque Meow. Let's get this bread. Okay, thank you for the Twitch Prime. Appreciate that. To me, the Razr is the better fold design, which is, design-wise, at least they made the outside useful. You have to put... I still don't consider it useful, though, because the outside is still a downgrade from what a traditional phone is. A traditional phone has one display, and you don't have to unfold it. So people acting like, well, you can do more with it folded up. It's like, I don't want a condensed, miniaturized version of the experience. When you're combating against a phone, I can just pull out of my pocket and have the full display instantly, not just a tiny version of the display when folded up and a better display when unfolded. It's just unnecessary. This is trying to solve a problem no one's asking for. That's my bigger issue with it. But I've yet to see this tablet foldable that apparently is going to be the future. And if there's anyone who knows about the future of tablets, I would say it's Apple. They basically modernized the tablet. I know there were tablets before the iPad, but they made it mainstream with the iPad. They got the software better than anyone. Everyone else, when it came to tablets, just decided to turn them into laptops. That was the only way they could get them to sell, was they didn't want to change the software to be touch-friendly. They just wanted it to be keyboard and mouse compatible. And then at that point, in order to utilize 80% of its features, you essentially have to turn it into a laptop, which is when you just dock a keyboard and a mouse, and you're mainly using it with that and occasionally touching the display. You're just selling a laptop without the keyboard and mouse. That's what a lot of companies have ended up doing with tablets. Google did it with the Pixel Slate. Microsoft did it with the Surface line. They're basically laptops. They just don't sell the keyboard and mouse with them. But every single picture has the keyboard and mouse with them. Then they start folding TVs is when they really run out of ideas. They got to wrap up the TVs. You could. What's the advantage of folding TV? I don't know. It folds, but it folds though. It folds. Yes, it's $40,000, but it folds. Come on, this is so cool. If the fingerprint opened up the phone, that would be dope. I saw some concepts of that. Some people were tagging me with the tweet from Ben Geskin of like, hey, look, the Apple Flip where you like press it and it automatically unfolds. Again, even if it unfolded by itself, for one, that's going to drive up the price. That's going to make it way more expensive. For two, it's a motor which has its own set of issues, but on top of that, it's an extra step. Even if you don't have to fold, even if it can unfold all by itself, it's still an extra step that isn't there with traditional phones. Again, it's throwing money R&D, and all of this extra expertise that comes at a compromise of water resistance, dust resistance, the internals. You can't get a very good battery when you have to fold it in half like that, because batteries don't do well when you try to bend them half and half like that. So it's still trying to solve an issue that doesn't exist. It's not a problem we have with our smartphones. This isn't something we're complaining about. So yeah, even if that Z Flip, not Z Flip, even if that iPhone foldable concept existed, I don't think it would do well. I don't think very many people would buy it. Do you think the iPhone 12 is going to come without a notch? No. I'm almost convinced it will have the same size notch as the current one we have. So I highly doubt that there will be a no-notched iPhone this year. Other than the iPhone SE, but that's kind of cheating. LG announced a rollable TV with changing viewing angles. Great. Thank you, LG. The issue with TVs that a lot of people forget about is that they are stationary devices like desktops, which means that people do not upgrade them that often. Usually, people will set them up or buy them when they move into their new house or something, and then they're kind of good. There's very few people that regularly buy new TVs just to swap out their old ones. Not in the same way, we upgrade our phones or something like that, or even our laptops to a certain extent. Stationary devices don't need to be replaced as much as mobile devices. That's just a fact, because stationary devices don't have batteries, so the lithium does not degrade as much. When devices aren't mobile, they don't experience as much damage because they're usually fixed. Like my iMac Pro, I've been using we're nearing, well, we just surpassed the 2-year mark, but I mean, this December it'll be 3 years. So that device has aged incredibly well because I'm not putting it in and out of a bag. I'm not taking it to different places and having to take it through security checkpoints and stuff like that. It just sits on my desk. So when you're not moving very much, there's not much damage that can take place. There's no battery degradation, obviously. So same thing with a TV. There's very little reasons to upgrade it with time, mostly because people can't see that much of a difference after 1080p anyway. Average time to replace TVs is 8 years. Yeah, that sounds about right. I think it's about the same amount as cars, to be honest with you. People upgrade their TVs probably more or less often than their cars. I've had my TV since 2013. Yeah, one of the TVs I have in our bedroom I've had since the attic days, which was I think I bought it in 2016. So yeah, that and I didn't buy it new. I bought it used off of Facebook. Does anyone know what's going on with Ben Geskin on Twitter? Did Apple contact him about his renders? Yeah, I saw that tweet, but I don't really know what it means. I'm assuming it means that Apple may have contacted him with a cease and desist or something like that, but I don't know. He definitely left a lot of room for speculation. So he hasn't contacted me, if that's what you're asking. No. Is the Galaxy Z like your daily driver now? No. I reviewed the thing. I took it around with me. There was a little issue with the daily driver thing. I don't know if many people noticed, but I didn't say that in my video. I took the Z Flip everywhere I went. Let's put it that way. Anytime I left the house, the Z Flip was in my pocket. The thing was, though, so was the iPhone. So I usually don't do that. Usually I just want to fully commit to one phone and get to know it, so I will leave my iPhone behind. But the second the Z Flip went up for order on Samsung's site, there was no option for unlocked. You could not buy the Z Flip unlocked, which put me at kind of a disadvantage because I was forced to either buy it from Sprint or AT&T. I think those were the only two options, both of which were carrier locked, which meant that I could not put my Mint Mobile SIM into the Z Flip and have it activate. Because it was pretty much tied to Sprint, and I don't have a Sprint account. So the phone is constantly reminding me to activate it, but I could not use the Z Flip as my daily driver, even though I was taking it around with me and I was using it as my phone. You know, the iPhone just stayed in my pocket so that it could basically act as a hotspot for the Z Flip. So I still got the full use of it. I just wasn't able to put my SIM into it and switch over completely. So, Facebook for the secure experience. Now, Facebook for the quantity and local experience. I am well aware that Facebook is not a secure platform, but if you're trying to get in contact with people in your community, seeing what's available in your area, Facebook is still one of the largest social media platforms. So they have that. Chris Norton, thank you for the 100 bits. Appreciate that. So no, the Z Flip has not become my daily driver, and also I've stopped taking it around with me after I review it. That's typically what I do with most smartphones. I will hang on to them for a while just in case I notice something or I have some follow up thoughts later. So I still have the Z Flip, but usually I will use it as the primary phone. In this specific use case, I had to carry two, but after a while, I will once I do the phone review, that's usually when I stop using it as my daily. And I missed my iPhone. I was tired of using the Z Flip for everything. The switching to Android was very, very cumbersome this time around. There were a lot of things I didn't enjoy about the Z Flip that I didn't bring up in the review because I had already talked about the Z Flip on the Talos of Tech podcast, and I had already brought up I did a whole Q&A on my last Twitch stream here. So I didn't want to repeat too much of what I had already said, because I know there's some of you that listen to all these. So I didn't want it to be too redundant. So I said, hey, okay, for the sake of the review, I'm gonna try to do something a little bit different. And that little mix-up was that I'm going to pretend the Z Flip is half the price, and I'm going to pretend it has zero durability issues, which I thought was more interesting because I figured after seeing a lot of people make videos on the Z Flip, I was like, okay, look, everyone's saying the same thing, right? This is really cool. I love the foldable, and this is built great, and I love it, and it's foldable, cool. But it's too expensive, and there's durability problems, so you probably shouldn't buy one yet. Just wait until the next generation. So I was like, okay, that's the recurring message everyone's having. I want to be a little bit different, separate myself, and say, okay, when I review the Flip, I'm just going to pretend it's $700, and I'm going to pretend there's no durability problems. And that in itself made a 16-minute video. So just within 16 minutes, I can explain to you why I think this is a flawed idea. It's not a flawed execution. They executed very well. I think the build quality is excellent. There are durability problems, I admit that, but they're not with my model. My model's been fine. And the price is high and everything, but I didn't want that to be the main criticism. So I was just trying to mix it up a little bit, provide some refreshing mindset instead of just saying the same thing everyone else is saying. So that was my effort. RJ Moore, 87, thank you for the 2 bits and Twitch priming sub on a 1-month streak. Thank you. iPad into iPhone foldable or iPhone into iPod foldable? No. No iPods necessary. What would the iPod be? I saw Renee Ritchie's video on the Apple Flip of the idea that on the outside display that Apple should just be running a version of watchOS. So you have kind of a pocket watch that you pull out of your pocket, and then you have like this very minimal UI. But again, it's always going to cost more. It's always going to come at a compromise of specs, durability, and price point. And again, it's not a problem people have with their phones. If you ask them what their biggest issues are, they're not that they're too big. That's not like people are liking bigger and bigger phones for a reason. It's because they're okay with them. You know, there's a reason that people weren't buying the smaller iPhones over the bigger ones, and lots of people are comfortable with the 10Rs and the 11 size. The 10R was the best-selling phone of 2019, as more and more research has been done to confirm that, and the iPhone 11 is supposedly selling even better. These are big phones relative to previous generations. You know, they're over 6-inch displays, and the most common criticisms people have with phones are not that they need to fold and not that they need to be smaller and more compact. And again, as I brought up in my video, the fact that they fold is not an objective good thing. The fact that it folds up, even ignoring price and specs and durability, even ignoring all that, it's actually more cumbersome to get out of my pocket than a traditional phone because you have to dig it deeper in, and it creates this extra step. Even if you try to replicate the unfolded experience on the outside, like the Moto Razr does, it's always going to be more limited than just having a traditional phone display. And I think the market's going to show that with the lack of demand. Been watching your videos since the Addict Days. Huge fan. Keep it up. Thank you, RJ. Appreciate it. I will keep it up. As long as you guys keep watching, I can keep making. If everybody stops watching, I probably won't be able to keep making. But in response, some people may be wondering, there wasn't an EV video yesterday. I apologize for that. I wasn't feeling very well. I was having some type of severe migraine, and I was trying really, really hard to just get up and make the video. But my head was bothering me so immensely. I'm not sure what it was. But I haven't been sleeping well lately. So I got up and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna make the EV video. I gotta get it done. So I stood up real quickly, and then just my brain hurt even more, and my eyes were super sore. I could barely look anything. So I just had to have a slow day yesterday. I did make time for the tech video on AirTags, but yeah, I did not feel good. So I apologize. It appears to have passed. I don't have any headaches now. Most of the headache was gone by the evening. So maybe it's just me not eating enough or something like that. But I don't know. Luckily, I feel better now. EV video's up, and after this, I'll probably do a tech vid. We'll see. So if you had to choose in your team, normal screen, small fold, or big screen, normal fold. Let's see. Small fold or normal fold? What do you mean? You mean between? I assume you mean between Z Flip and Galaxy Fold. After using the Z Flip as my primary phone for a week, I feel like the phablet the foldable tablet has a better chance now, but I haven't used one, so I'm not completely convinced. I'm still on the team of I don't think foldables are the future. I think they're a gimmick and they're going to stay that way, and they're never going to be mainstream. But who knows? Maybe I could get a Galaxy Fold and I'll feel like it utilizes so much. But I've seen people upload pictures on Twitter and stuff, and people need to quit ripping on the Galaxy Fold because I'm looking at airplane prices, I'm watching a YouTube video, and I'm texting someone all at the same time, and they show a picture of them running 3 apps simultaneously, and I'm always like, you don't do all 3 things at once, though. I mean, when you have a large display like a MacBook Pro or a iPad Pro or a regular iPad, even a 10-inch display, that's when you can just like leave things running at the same time. What I like about those iPads is that I can be watching a video and texting someone, and scrolling through Twitter simultaneously. Whereas that Galaxy Fold, the display is actually not that big. If we consider it a tablet display, it's the smallest tablet we've ever seen because there's no one selling a tablet right now that's like 7.3 inches. There have been tablets that small in the past, but they don't sell well. I can tell you that much. I mean, it's below the iPad Mini, which is not the best-selling iPad, by the way. Like, the iPad Mini was neglected for years because there wasn't that much demand for it. Some people enjoy it. Some people like it. But that's about as small as an iPad as it can get, and that's 7.9 inches. The Galaxy Fold is 7.3, and that's plus the asymmetrical notch. So I'm sure they're working on the next generation Galaxy Fold, but my issue is they've proven with that Fold that there's not really a happy middle ground where you can have a phone that has a decent sized display where it's usable when it's folded up and also usable when unfolded. You just get a really bad experience of both. You get a really crappy tablet and you get a really crappy phone for something that costs more than 2 separate ones. And my point is the reason I don't think Apple will ever make one is the same reason Apple has never made a 2-in-1 iPad and MacBook. Years ago, people were saying that's probably happening because Apple made this iPad and they seem to be putting a lot of effort into the software and making this experience where you can have a larger touch display outside of the iPhone and it's getting more split screen stuff. So a lot of people are like, well, they're clearly getting ready for the mixture of making a hybrid product, right? They're going to make something that's a MacBook but can also, you can fold the keyboard onto the back and then it translates into an iPad. They never did that, though, did they? But the technology is totally there for it. There are so many 2-in-1 laptops out there that you can unfold the keyboard 360 degree and convert into a tablet. So many brands have done that for years. But you notice Apple hasn't. They have prototypes for it. They had patents for it. They experimented with it. But that doesn't mean it actually comes out. I would say a 2-in-1 laptop, MacBook, and iPad hybrid is far more likely and far more feasible than a foldable iPhone. But they never did that. And it's because Apple cares about making standalone products that are great at what they are. Apple's never really been that much about 2-in-1 devices that are okay at 2 things. So everyone keeps assuming Apple's going to make this product when the last big assumption was that Apple was going to make an iPad MacBook hybrid. They never did that. They never got around to it. Apple is the company to say no to those types of trends. They're the type of company to say, no, the iPad is better if it's just an iPad. The iPhone is better if it's just an iPhone. If there was some way we could combine the two products and get something that's better than both, they would do it. They would make that product. But I don't think there is, personally. I think there's too many clashing things that make a good tablet what it is and that would make a good phone what it is. And when you try to combine the two, you get this awkward mess. That's what the Galaxy Fold is. And just from a financial point of view, it's also not good incentive for Apple either, because that would be killing two product lines. And I know that Apple's constantly trying to figure out what the next big thing is so that they can figure out what's going to kill their main bread and butter before they want to find the product that's going to kill their best-selling one. And they want to release that before anyone else can. And the fact that they haven't released a foldable yet, and people have been telling me they're going to release a foldable for years now, to me is evidence that there may not be a good way to do it. There's too many compromises, and that's that. That's why Apple still sells MacBooks and iPads and nothing that is in between the two. They like those things separate. They're the kind of company to do that. Microsoft, no. Samsung, no. Google, no. They want to merge everything and they want to make two-in-one products, but it's usually because they've only figured out how to make one version of that two-in-one, and that other part of the two is neglected and barely useful. Like my experience in the past with using a Surface Pro without a keyboard and mouse is a terrible tablet experience. It was clearly designed to be a keyboard and mouse experience. I love my iPad because it has no fans. That too. Will Apple cancel WWDC to the coronavirus? That's still like, man, is that only 3 months away? I'm realizing it's the end of February, and Worldwide Developers Conference is likely going to be June 1st this year. So, man, that's coming up. That's only like a little over 3 months out. Yeah, they might. I don't know. Yeah, a lot of events are getting canceled, but hopefully coronavirus can be contained and figured out by then. Hope so. Where do you think that expectations should be for Apple's glasses? I think people should expect them to be expensive and probably not for everyone. I also think people should stop expecting them to replace the iPhone. That's a big misconception I think a lot of people aren't understanding. I don't think that AR hardware is meant to replace the iPhone. It's meant to assist the iPhone. I saw very, very similar reactions before the Apple Watch came out. You know, I wasn't really making that many tech YouTube videos back then, but a lot of people, when they were reading reports, I was still in the tech community. I was watching YouTubers and I was reading rumors and stuff like that. So a lot of people thought when the Apple Watch came out that it was meant to replace the iPhone. In fact, a lot of people still think it's supposed to get to that point. I don't think it is. I think it's always going to be an accessory to the iPhone because there's certain inherent flaws with the idea that can't be replaced by price point, can't be replaced by tech specs, can't be replaced by making hardware smaller. There's certain things the Apple Watch will never be able to do that the iPhone can. No matter hardware improvements. And I feel the same way about augmented reality. There's a lot of things it's going to help with, 3D holograms and projecting things, but there's a bunch of stuff it will never be able to do that the iPhone does. So I think it will be very much like the next big wearable, similar to AirPods and the Apple Watch. Is like this is going to heighten every aspect of the Apple ecosystem in a way no other product has. Just imagining that you could open a MacBook and add an external monitor to it, just like that with AR. Getting a text message from your phone will, the notification will actually pop out from the phone. 3D holograms, the potential is infinite, which is why I would not look at first generation AR glasses as I would look at the first generation foldable technology, because I feel like with foldables we can see what the inherent design flaws are and we know what they cannot improve on. There's fundamental issues built in, even if the hardware was perfect, like I brought up in my Z Flip review. Whereas the AR glasses, the potential is huge. So to me, even if it is expensive and even if it doesn't perform very well on the first generation, it could still be the future, just because of the potential you could have with it. Whereas foldables, I don't see the potential. Do you think your audience gets annoyed when you like Samsung products? Is that hard to deal with? Like you can't openly show that you like the device? Um, no, it's not that hard because I know that people who genuinely like my channel and genuinely want to hear what I have to say, that portion of my audience just wants me to be honest. I get that. The people that truly are like respectful and appreciative of my channel, they don't care what I like or don't like. They just want me to say what I'm thinking. And if I really, really like the S20, but I decided that would look bad for the Apple sheep to say that I like the S20, um, I'm just going to lie and say that it sucks, and I'm going to try to hang on little details as why the S20 isn't good. And that's another good point, CWABs, is that if you've been watching my videos for a long time, you know that I've always enjoyed the Galaxy S line of phones. From a hardware perspective, not so much software, but for years I've been saying how great they are. I said the S8 was amazing, and the S9 I was like, this is okay. But the S10 I had a lot of good things to say about, and this is not out of the ordinary. But there are a lot of people that always bring it up, like, "Whoa, the Apple sheep is saying it's good." It's like, yeah, because I want the company with the best hardware to get credit for that, you know. Um, and the fundamentals of Telosa from the beginning is to just tell you what I'm thinking. It wasn't I'm going to be biased towards Apple and I will defend them to the grave. That's not the point. My point is my opinion is that Apple gets more hate than they deserve. They get more flack than they deserve, and I'm going to defend them when I believe they're in the right. You may not always agree with me, but I'm also going to criticize them when I think they're in the wrong, and I have done that in the past. But in more recent years, honestly, it's been harder and harder to find things that Apple needs defending on because they're doing a lot of things people want, and there's less and less things. Like in the past, there were a lot of stuff I could defend them on, like the headphone jack or USB-C on the MacBooks and the butterfly keyboard. But now they're just doing what everybody wants, so there's less and less need for a Apple sheep defense rant. Which is partially why the channel doesn't, blow up and get as many views as it used to. There's just not that much controversy, really. People like what Apple's doing, and they're fine with it. Um, yeah, I thought the S20 was awesome. I enjoy that Samsung is kind of moving away from just directly comparing themselves to the iPhone. And it's not just Samsung, too. There's been a lot of Android phones I've told people are great in the past. And I tell them, if you like Android software, this is the phone I recommend. Like, back in 2017, I thought the Essential phone was really, really cool. I also recommended the Razer phone. I thought when Razer started getting into phones, that was really impressive, and I liked the hardware. They kind of did the 120 hertz thing before everybody. Now that's something we all want. That's something everybody's asking for on phones, and a lot of us are getting it on Android phones. But Razer kind of started that trend. It kind of sucks that no one really bought into them, and they're not doing any more mobile phones. But I thought it was great when the Razer phone came out. I thought that was pretty cool, and the Razer phone 2 especially was a huge amount of improvement. Um, I think I wasn't as big a fan as the original Razer phone. If you go back and watch my original Razer phone video, I wasn't that impressed with it because the price point was kind of high for the specs. It wasn't that impressive, and it was kind of traditional looking. But the Razer phone 2 kind of listened and responded to everything people were asking for. So it's not. I don't want the channel to think that I just hate all Android phones, because that's not true. There's a lot of Android phones I've really enjoyed using, and I think the S20 Ultra is going to be one. The Z Flip was not one. That software experience was terrible, and the flip part was incredibly reactionary. And what I mean by reactionary is it's very interesting the first time you do it, and then a week after you're like, okay, you get over it so fast. You're just like, all right, it folds, and now you're just using it again. It's not something that makes a big impact on your daily life, and the small impact it does make on your daily life is an annoyance. It's not a convenience. So that's why I didn't believe it was the future. So for the fact that the Z Flip, on the record, is now the most expensive phone I've ever reviewed on my channel. I've never reviewed a phone that cost that much before, and my experience was, give me the iPhone back, please. That's why I was like, no, I would not recommend this. Even if you're a big Android fan, I wouldn't recommend it. If I had the money, I would definitely pull an MKBHD and carry an iPhone and an Android. I did that for a while. I don't know if you guys remember, but I did not return the Galaxy S8. I bought that and kept it for about 3 months, and then I sold it. because and it did not sell very well. I did not get much in return for it. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember, but I just remember that in the past when I had sold iPhones, they sold like within a week. And once I started trying to sell an Android phone, it would take months. Same with the Pixel 3. No one wanted to buy that thing, and it was like it was like 55% what it was worth. Like people did not, 45% what the original retail price was. Like people did not, the resale value for Androids is terrible. Back when your audience was smaller, you could easily get away with bashing Android for no reason. No, I disagree. I feel like I could get away with it more now as my audience is larger, and I do fully agree that I've attracted a lot of blind Apple sheep. I call myself the Apple sheep, but if you watch my videos, it's more of a satirical line. It's more of like yep, you called me an Apple sheep. I'm calling myself an Apple sheep too. Let's get past the name calling. Let's just get into actual logic and reasons as to why a phone is good or not. Like a lot of people have said, I'm not actually an Apple sheep. I just call myself that. But there have been a lot of people attracted that just become Apple sheep, and they come out especially when I start criticizing Apple. I've noticed that I can't get away with criticizing Apple as much as I used to. Now, if I say something bad about the Mac Pro or the Pro Display or the Pro Display Stand, obviously my genuine fans and my actual core audience is like, hey, I just want Drew to be honest about his opinion. He's honest about it. Okay, that's all we can ask for. But that's when a bunch of people from the blind Apple sheep's side will come out and start saying, no, Drew, you're just not in the market. You're not a pro user. You got to be a pro user. You're not actually, people that never buy this thing are coming out and defending it. And a lot of people misunderstanding my argument, which is not that these products are overpriced. They're just targeted at a demographic that Apple never targeted before. And the products we were asking for still haven't actually come out. Even though they're called the Mac Pro, we didn't actually get a new Mac Pro. We got Mac Enterprise. They just shifted demographics completely. So I still feel like I've never bashed Android for no reason. Other than just like jokes and videos where I'm just like, Android sucks, but I don't mean that. If you listen to the podcast or watch the streams or actually have a genuine conversation with me, you know that my opinion on Android is that it's fine. I just think iOS is better. I think it's more smoothed out, and I think it's more optimized than Android is. It comes a lot down to the third-party apps, as I've experienced with the Z Flip. The third-party optimization on iOS is just so much better than the Play Store. And there's a lot of things in Android that just feel sloppier. And I know that you can do more with Android and that it has more customization, but in my opinion, you only do customization a couple times a year. For the rest of the year, it's just your phone. And in that case, optimization and having it work reliably and having a consistent experience and having more app updates and everything support your hardware is more important than just being able to put apps at the bottom of the screen instead of the top of the screen. Hey, Drew, 200K on the tech channel is coming up soon. Yes, I know. I saw that. I'm excited. Big milestone for the tech channel, which is cool. But I think people get a little roped up in the subscriber thing too much because the number of subscribers you have really doesn't matter that much. What I find depressing is how many people subscribe to the channel but then never watch your videos. So in that sense, I'm kind of not wanting the channel to grow in subscribers unless the view counts are going to grow too. I'm more focused on like the watch time and the number of people watching my videos, not just the number of people that hit the subscribe button, because the average amount of views I get on videos is like 20 to 30,000 views, and I have 198,000 subscribers. That means there's a lot of people that subscribe and don't watch, which I'm not proud of. That means that there's someone who was interested at a point and they may not be interested anymore. So it's almost scary in a way. I'm like, don't hit 200,000. Don't hit 200K unless you're actually gonna, unless we're actually gonna get more viewers. But whatever. I can't control that. I'm not gonna ask you to stop subscribing. Stop. Don't or just what I would request is that if you don't watch my videos, unsubscribe. Just clean up your subscriptions feed, people. Like, come on. iOS is just more thoughtful. Just remember the gestures, which worked from day one on the iPhone, while on Android, yeah, that's a good point. Android had to take a couple of years before they got the gesture stuff down. They are doing that already, but they can't leave Google because it's third-party support. I feel like Samsung should escape the Android bubble. Well, people keep saying they need to do that, but they were saying that back in the 2017, and here we are in 2020, and it still hasn't happened. So, I mean, like, if they would try to do it, it would be somewhat interesting, but they haven't. So, baby steps, maybe. I know they've made some progress with the Galaxy Store, but I think Samsung is well aware that if they did not have Google Apps or Android, they would probably lose a bunch of people. So, yeah, there's issues with that. Are you a sub-bot channel? Yeah, that's what I am. No, I to me, like, the people who are watching your videos and the quality of the videos, too, because I think a lot of channels... Man, a whole lot of channels, by the way. A lot of channels, even ones that I watch, are way more focused on getting clicks and generating watch time than they are making genuine content. So to me, I'm very picky with the views and watch time I get, okay? Because I know that I could do response videos and reaction videos to other content and get way more views and watch time if I just tried to stir up drama with other channels. But I don't. Because I know that it attracts a certain type of audience and it's very toxic and I don't think it's constructive or helpful. And it's not the type of content I enjoy making. I did it a couple times because I had some friends that were like, hey, I think this would be fun, or I think this would be interesting if you did a reaction video. It wasn't really my idea from the get-go, and I was like, okay, I'll do a reaction. And those videos always blew up and it got tons of views. But I didn't like the audience they attracted, and I experienced very early in my career that if I could generate more dislikes, I could actually generate more money and bizarrely generate more subscribers. I would get more subscribers and revenue if I did more controversial things. But I didn't enjoy doing controversial things. I just wanted to make videos about what I was thinking. So, I'm just gonna stop doing that. So I'm not gonna try to trick people with my thumbnails and titles, which a lot of channels do, and I think it's a very creator-based point of view. It's not so much a viewer-based point of view, because as a content viewer, as someone who watches a lot of YouTube videos, that annoys me when a channel tries to trick me. Click on this video because I have exclusive access, or there's some channels that are like Apple has just bought Tesla and they're lying. And then you watch the video and you're like, so what if this happened? It's like, I don't want to trick people. I want the titles and the thumbnails to be as honest as possible. And I want people to enjoy them and felt like they got some insight or they got some new knowledge out of the video without having me to fool them. Because I don't want to just get as many clicks as possible, no matter the consequences, no matter the stakes, no matter if I tick people off. Because I got a lot of clicks when I was like, Apple Sheep reacts to unbox therapy, or Apple Sheep reacts to Apple sucks, and that's gets people, get their blood boiling, gets their adrenaline going. They're like, ooh, I want to see how wrong this Apple Sheep idiot is, or I want to see how Drew tackles this idiot, and it just creates this drama I don't like. So I'm picky with my watch time, and that's okay. Like, as long as people are watching and I get to make what I want to make, then I'm happy with that. So I just want to make the content I want to see. That's why I'm trying to do everything from a viewer point of view. When you become a content creator and your livelihood depends on the watch time and it depends on the views, that's when your opinion on videos will change a lot. You'll notice that if you ask a bunch of YouTube viewers, if you ask a bunch of them, do you enjoy clickbaity titles and videos? They're like, no, that's annoying. I hate YouTubers that, like, how many YouTubers do you know? I don't think I've ever said this, but there's a lot of YouTubers that say this, and it just instantly makes them annoying. But when they go, what's up, guys? How many YouTubers start videos up there? What's up, guys? I talk a little bit louder when I'm live streaming because it's better for the microphone and you can hear me better, and it's probably more dynamic and interesting than me just going, hey guys, so I wanted to talk about the Z Flip today. So you don't want to be like too casual. You still want to be dynamic and animated and interesting for the sake of the viewer, but there's a lot of people that I feel like go way too high with that. And then how many, what's up, guys? Like, I don't want to overkill it to the point that it's not genuine. It's really, really thin middle ground there where you're like animated and dynamic and interesting, but you're not too far to the point of being annoying where you just come across as, like you're talking to a baby or something. Hey everybody, hey guys. Hey guys, this is Austin. That's more of his slogan, That's not what I mean. I'm referring to the YouTubers that are trying to get on the trending tab and be excited all the time. But if you ask a bunch of YouTube creators, what do you think of clickbaity titles and thumbnails? That's when you see all the opinions change, and they're like, hey, I mean, they clicked on the video, so it worked. If it works, right? Like that's what I've seen a lot of people use as their argument as to justifying clickbait and thumbnails and titles and stuff. Well, they click, it works. I know it works. It's depressing. I just don't want it to work. I would rather content creators that are more honest and are not trying to trick people get more views and watch time. It's probably not going to work. I'm aware of that, but doesn't mean I have to partake in it. I don't want to be a content creator that I find annoying. I watch a lot of YouTube, by the way, so I don't get it. Pretty much every gaming YouTuber starts off with that. Do you recommend someone clickbait in the beginning and then once they get 1,000 subs and 4,000 hours of watch time, break away from that? No, not really. I don't think I can any time recommend someone clickbait because that's encouraging the idea that you should pursue fame by any means necessary, which is a very slippery slope. I mean, there's jerks that prank people online, and they're not even pranks. Sometimes they're just terrible things to do to people, like throwing stuff at them or being jerks to them and filming their reaction. And it's a prank, bro. That whole thing. That's just fame for the sake of fame. And I don't think it's a good mindset to be like, well, I'm going to be bad now so that I can be famous and then I'll be nice. Like, I don't think that's worth it. If you're asking, well, how does someone get famous? How does someone get an audience and attention? In which I say, just try to do it in the most wholesome way possible. Just try to do it without bothering as many people as possible. And it may not be as exciting and you may not grow as fast, but just being genuine and just making the content that you enjoy that doesn't involve hurting or annoying others. It may be slower growth, but I think it'll be more honest growth, which I think we need more of. I don't think we need more just people just trying to get attention and try to grow their channel as quickly as possible. I think we need more people that just are more true to themselves than anything, and want to be polite about it. Don't make videos at the expense of others' joy. Scott Kilmer uses the most clickbaity titles ever. I don't know who that is, but I'm sure you're right. Tesla driver. Well, I watch him. He can get more genuine, but the "what's up, guys" thing needs to stop. Is Tailosive Tech becoming your second focus now, Drew? Well, that's a tough question. Luckily, it hasn't. I mean, there's times like yesterday where I'm not feeling well, where I made a tech video, but I did not make an EV video. My focus is towards whatever most people are interested in. And sometimes there are occasional times where EVs have more interest than the regular tech stuff on the tech channel. But here's the thing, I haven't stopped with my creation of tech videos. I've started making more EV content, but I haven't slowed down the amount of tech videos I make. That hasn't pulled away time from the tech channel. I've luckily so far been able to prioritize both. I've not been put into the compromising situation where I have to choose one or the other, where I have to be like, okay, I got to pick EVs or I got to pick tech. Luckily, that hasn't happened. There are occasional days where I have limited time, in which case I have to pick one over the other, but it will usually depend on which channel is getting more views than the other. So if the EV channel is doing great for views, then I'll be like, okay, that's fine. I'll focus on tech now. If the tech channel is doing great for views, I'll be like, okay, if I can only make one video today, I'll leave tech alone. I'll do EV because the tech channel is doing fine. So if the tech channel becomes a secondary or it becomes less of a focus, it'll be because less people are watching it. Which, I mean, you guys, I guess, don't get to see the numbers or the data, But I can just tell you in a general sense that the tech channel doesn't get a lot of views in the beginning of the year in general. The first quarter is always slow for tech stuff. But the tech channel is not growing at the rate it used to, and it's not getting the amount of views or watch time that it has in the past. But that can change very quickly. You know, like I say that now, but we still just hit 1 million views very recently, like just a couple months ago. The first video I have ever made that hit 1 million views was not even that old. That was the Cybertruck video, but that was on the tech channel regardless. But my point is, if my focus moves away from the tech channel, it'll be because people stopped watching or became less interested. And whose fault is that? It's a little bit of both. It's not all on me and it's not all on you. I'm not saying that you guys just aren't watching enough tech videos. A lot of it has to do with what's going on in the space, in the market. You know, there's a lot less things to get excited about, in my opinion. So when that happens, there will be less content viewed. There will be less people watching those types of videos. So that's why it's important for me to diversify. I think the EV space is going to exponentially grow throughout the next century. There's tons of room for growth there. So I'm going to keep working on that. But also, I fully admit that the reason you guys probably watch my videos today or know who I am is because I made some video about a phone that you happen to watch. So I'm going to keep making videos on that. And I'm going to keep focusing on that because it is a decent chunk of my revenue and it's a big piece of my income. But EV has kind of taken the lead in that way right now. But I think it's just because there's more interesting stuff happening. You know, we got Model Y deliveries in a couple weeks. We got the Cybertruck, which was the most controversial pickup truck design in history. Not pickup truck design, but it's the most heavily demanded electric vehicle of all time. And it's the most divisive vehicle design of all time. So there was a lot to talk about there. So it makes sense as to why there may be more pull towards that in the news. As I'm a kind of a news person, I'm just reporting on stuff with my opinion. And in the tech space, there's less interesting things. So that's why it can become secondary sometimes. What are the best displays for Macs? Oh, I don't know. Go on Amazon, look at the high ratings ones. Let's see. It's always quiet in the beginning of the year. That's true. I have a question. Someone with an iPhone 10s have experienced that haptics of keyboard stopped working. I haven't experienced that, no. Just bought a MacBook Pro 13-inch, latest one, for $1,300 from Best Buy. Then the next day, they dropped to $100, so they price matched it, and I got a $1,200. Is that good? Yeah, if they price match it, that's great. That's good. Is Roadster coming this year? I think so. I think it will. Some people disagree, but the Roadster is a very low volume car, which the main issue with Tesla production of any kind is battery production. And given they're not making that many Roadsters, they delayed the Tesla semi-truck, but I think that was because it takes so many dang battery packs and so many people want one. There's like a bunch of commercial companies that are reserving tons of them. And each Tesla semi takes like 10 times the battery packs of one Model S. Whereas the Roadster, that's a pretty small demographic. It's a very high-priced car, and it's not applying to as many people as the semi-truck is going to apply to business-wise. And it only takes it's a 200 kilowatt-hour pack, which is twice the size of a Model S pack. But there's going to be way less people buying the Roadster than the Model S. So I think it's going to be low volume at first. I don't think they'll ramp production very quickly. But at the Founder Series, they're only going to make 1,000 of them. That's not that many. So in the scheme of like the Model 3, they make 1,000, in a day almost. Not in a day. Like every couple of 4,000, yeah. In less than a week, they make 1,000 Model 3. So making 1,000 Roadsters by the end of this year, I think will be possible. Do you think you'll ever release your own smartphone or smartwatch? No, I don't think so. Taylosif's not that big. Do you think YouTube will become a platform full of people clickbaiting and lying and all the genuine people far behind? What do you mean become that? It's already that. No, I don't think so. I think that there's a very large portion of people on YouTube that are looking for genuine YouTubers that are just honest and are not trying to just get as many clicks as possible and not trying to trick their viewers. And there's a good number of very large YouTubers that are genuine. I don't mean to say that if you're big, you're a clickbaity liar, and if you're small, it's because you're smart. There are a lot of channels that can get big and still stay true to themselves. So no, I don't think it'll become that, but there will definitely be a large portion though. There's going to be a large demographic of people that are going to get big by fooling people and by lying and by clickbaiting, but they're going to be known for that, and that's how their reputation, I think, will be permanently damaged. Whenever someone thinks of those YouTubers, they're going to think of them that way, and that reputation and that stigma is going to be very hard to remove, even if they become honest or genuine later. So no, I don't think it will just all fall to one or the other, because the viewer base of YouTube is very diverse, just as much as the creators are diverse. So the people that enjoy that type of content, they will move towards that, and the people who fall for the clickbait and fall for the deceiving titles, they'll follow that, but they'll probably be a little bit angrier. Hopefully Roadster comes in Q3 of this year. I would guess very end of Q4. My guess is, there's a lot of things Tesla does at the last minute just to say that they were correct. Like they technically sell a $35,000 Model 3, but it's really hard to find. You have to order a standard range plus, and then you have to call them and tell them to downgrade it to standard range, and they'll do it for you. But it's it's a whole process. And the original Model 3, when they unveiled it, they were like, yeah, it'll start at $35,000. So they're like, yeah, technically they're correct, but it's kind of a loophole. And I feel like they'll do the same thing with the Roadster. Production of it is obviously very much more difficult than a traditional car, because it's a performance car and it's way more luxury than anything else they sell. So they're going to pay attention to details a lot more on the Roadster than they are on something like a Model S or the Model 3. So I think that they will deliver like the first 100 Roadsters by the end of the year. I don't think there will be that many made, but they'll just barely cut it in December. They'll be like, yeah, okay, we delivered it in 2020. Counts. See? We said it was coming 2020. And then in 2021, you'll get the bulk of the order. Next clickbait title: Apple events in 2020 all canceled. Yeah, there you go. You're giving them good ideas. Are you interested in VR? Will there be any tech videos about it? Valve Index, for example, since it has 120 hertz. No, my opinions on VR have not changed. Ever since it first started coming out, I remember just when I started making tech YouTube videos was the rise of the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive, like the first generations. And I tried one out, and I was like, this doesn't feel like virtual reality. It just feels like you strap the display to my head and you have a gyroscope. I mean, at no point in the experience that I felt like I was in another reality. I always felt like I was just looking at a display with some swimming goggles on. It didn't cover my peripherals. And there are some use cases where VR is cool, but it's incredibly limiting in lots of departments, especially gaming. A lot of people were like, VR is the future of gaming. And I'm like, it's a small market of gaming, but I wouldn't say it's the future. I'm sorry my light looks strange. I'm just relying on the window. It's just natural lighting. But the virtual reality has just been limited to a couple of use cases in my mind. It's never going to be a mainstream thing, because the biggest issues with VR is motion and contact. When you put something in front of someone's eyes, they can't really do very much in regards to motion. They have to stay within a designated box or else they get in trouble. And video games, most of them don't want you to stay within that locked of a position, so they have to work around it by saying like teleportation, where you just dart over to that part of the room or dart over to that part of the room, or designing games or experiences where you don't have to walk very much, which is kind of awkward and weird. Even if it's 120 hertz, I mean, that's not the issue with VR. I think it's a more fundamental built-in problem with it that makes it less of a mainstream thing. So I'm not that interested in it. I've tried it. My stepfather-in-law, is that a thing? He has an Oculus Go, the kind you can just use and it doesn't need wires or anything. I tried that the other day, and it was incredibly underwhelming. I was like, it was no different than Google Cardboard, really. It was just kind of fancier version of Google Cardboard, where you have a little. It wasn't that different from like the Samsung Gear VR. Do you guys remember that? Back when the Galaxy S8 came out, they would bundle it with this little Galaxy Gear thing where you would slide your phone into this headset and put it on, and it came with a little plastic remote, and you could move stuff around and point it at things. And that's what the Oculus Go was. It was basically just Samsung Gear VR, which is it's a cool little party trick, but it's not very. It gets old really quick, and then you're just done with it. Um, I started hurting, like having 1,000 needles on my eyes. Ow! He tried to do VR for 48 hours. It's I think virtual reality is a overhyped terminology. It shouldn't be called virtual reality. It's like I don't feel transformed when I have to put on this giant headset that's pressed against my face and I can see the pixels. I mean, you guys talk about the 10R being depressing because you can hold it really close to your eyes and start to see little pixel dots, like barely. Talk about those VR headsets, you can see all the pixels on those things. There may be really expensive versions where the pixels are harder to see, but man, no, it's just the limit. The use cases of it are very small. So it's like Beat Saber, yay! So I have not seen a use case of VR that has gotten me excited for it. I've used it in many different environments, and I've never been very impressed with it. There's a couple of market trends and stuff like that that gets really popular, but I just don't see the interest in that. Same with drones. A lot of people love drones, and I can't get into them. Did you think you'd ever upload at least one video in 8K or VR or something cool? Well, when I get the S20 Ultra, I'll be able to shoot in 8K, and I'm planning on doing an 8K vlog on the Talos of Talks channel. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I've never used an 8K camera before. Like, this is gonna be my very first use case of shooting video in 8K, editing it. I've never edited 8K video on the iMac, so I'm curious to try that. So yeah, I'll do one or two videos in 8K just from the S20 Ultra, but that's about it. I don't plan on doing much else. 8K is mostly unnecessary. Would you rather Apple go no port or a MagSafe type connector? A MagSafe type connector would require a new standard, and we don't need new standards right now. We need USB-C all the things, or go wireless. That's all the options for me. So I would say go portless before a MagSafe type. A MagSafe is not a problem phones have. The MagSafe is just slightly easier to plug in. That's not any different from USB-C. Like the issue with MagSafe is not the issue. The purpose of MagSafe is that people were tripping on cables, and you just wanted it to unplug very easily. But once they started doing USB-C, there wasn't a need for MagSafe because ports weren't designed the same way back then. Before USB-C and before MagSafe, charge plugs were way more stuck into the computer than they are now. And I did a video a long time ago on the reason they got rid of MagSafe on the MacBook is that you can try to trip on a USB-C cable plugged into a MacBook, it'll pull right out. The resistance isn't hard enough to yank the whole laptop along with it. At least when I tested it. I was testing it with a 15-inch MacBook Pro, so maybe it's different when it's a smaller MacBook, but I wasn't able to get the cable to pull the whole MacBook. If you apply that much pressure to a USB-C cable, it will just unplug. With an iPhone, I don't think that's a very common use case. You're not usually using your phone and stretching the cable out to the point that if someone steps on it, you need it to unplug really quickly. Have you watched Supersat's video comparing the S20 Ultra camera to iPhone 11? I have not, no. I haven't watched any S20 Ultra videos, actually, so. You need more B-rolls, Drew? Okay. They take a while, but okay. Tesla battery day is coming up. There could be newer batteries that offers more energy density in the same package. Tesla could make a longer range Model 3 at the same price, or same range at a lower price. What would you favor? I think people are overhyping battery investor day. I think battery technology is something people get really, really excited for very easily and very quickly whenever they hear that there's some battery breakthrough, because battery technology has barely changed. They could do that. I don't think that's what Battery Investor Day is going to be. I think Tesla's main bottleneck is the price of batteries and how many they can make. The issue with Teslas if you ask anyone who owns a Tesla, is not with range. Um, they've kind of figured out the range thing, and they don't have a demand problem. It's not that they can't get people to buy Teslas because they don't go 400 miles. That's not really the issue. The bigger issue is that they can't make them fast enough, they can't make batteries quick enough, and they can't make them cheap enough. That's a bigger concern. So I would say if they did figure out some higher energy density battery, it would make more sense to make Teslas cheaper than it would be to give them I mean, if you figured that out, you could do both. There's no reason you would have to do one over the other. You could make a cheaper standard range, and you could make a longer long range. But that's really not the issue. The bigger issue is making the battery last longer, not just like on a single charge. I mean, like after being charged and used and charged again and back and forth for years and years. So people are speculating Battery Investor Day is going to be more about like making a battery pack that you don't have to change out for the first million miles. So you could drive the car a million miles before you would need to replace the battery pack. That's probably what Battery Investor Day is going to be about. I don't think it's going to be them saying like, we're going to double the range of all our cars. Like, I don't think that's what it's going to be. It's going to get into the nitty gritty details of the chemistry and probably talk a lot more about the production and how much lower cost it is compared to the competition. Some words you say is killing if you use meme. Okay, take a short act. I don't think the solution to growth on YouTube is just more B-roll shots. It's just they're helpful, but that's something that someone else is always going to be doing better than you. Especially at this point in the YouTube space, you're not going to be like, well, I subscribe to this guy because his B-roll looks better, or he has more B-roll than anybody. Like, that's not why most people are going to subscribe. It's because you have something to say and they're interested. Are you getting the Mac Pro at some point? Nope. Made a video on that. You can go watch it, though. It's on my YouTube channel. Do you think the new S20 should be comparing to the iPhone 11 or 12? Probably not, because, I mean, people will do it, but the price is so much higher. Why compare it? Why bother? Like, do we compare the OnePlus do we compare the OnePlus 7 to the iPhone 11 Pro? I mean, there's a giant, some people do, I guess, but I mean, there's a giant price difference there. So it's kind of like huge different markets you're favoring in that point. So same with the S20. There's a huge price gap there. You meant the 11 Pro and the 12 Pro. Oh, well, that's just year after year. Yeah, we're going to do that because we're going to talk about the changes they made with the new phones, obviously. Do you know if Apple's going to make a matte screen iMac and slim bezels down? No, they've said nothing. I don't have sources that are exclusive to me. I don't have any reports or rumors or leakers that just talk to me directly. All the reports and rumors I get are from the same people you guys get them from. I just follow Mac Rumors. I follow Ben Geskin, CoinX, and Mac Takara, Ming-Chi Kuo, all those people on Twitter. You'll need to buy the new Mac Pro. I don't think the iMac Pro can handle 8K. It can. Marquez has been shooting in 8K for years, and he's been doing it on the iMac Pro. 8K does not require a Mac Pro. I can tell you that much. It's also a smartphone, so 8K from a smartphone camera is very different from 8K from a Red camera. But either way, people were editing 8K video on the iMac Pro for years. In fact, when the iMac Pro first came out, they were demoing it with 8K video in Final Cut. That's how they were showcasing, like, hey, look, you can edit multiple streams of 8K with this thing. So, no, you don't need a Mac Pro. The next Mac I buy will not be a desktop, I'm pretty sure. Unless they decide to refresh the iMac with something major, like thin bezels or redesign or something like that. But it doesn't sound like they're going to. There's been very little rumors or reports that are saying that's going to happen. So I'm more than likely, my next Mac is going to be like a 16-inch MacBook Pro that's fairly highly spec'd. Like I would like to get a maxed out CPU, GPU, and a decent amount of storage. I don't think I need 8 terabytes. That would be nice, but I don't think I need 8 terabytes. It just costs too much. They're selling the 16-inch MacBook Pro refurbished already, which I'm excited about because I'll probably get certified refurbished since they replaced the battery and everything. So I likely won't do an unboxing video for that one because I've already done a unboxing and a review of the 16-inch MacBook Pro. So If I was looking for something though to replace my iMac Pro with, I would not get rid of the iMac Pro. I would just turn the iMac Pro into my dedicated live streaming station. Right now, I'm doing it off the Mac Mini. But if I got a MacBook Pro, I would sell the Mac Mini, turn the iMac Pro into a live streaming station, and then edit everything off the MacBook Pro, which I did edit a couple of videos off the 16-inch MacBook Pro. And that was the base model, and it did great. It handled everything great, and that was the lowest spec model. So if I got the maxed out CPU and GPU, I'm sure it would handle it even better. So yeah, I'm more than likely, and I also work from home, and it would be kind of nice to have the flexibility to go work on the go if I would like. If I'd go work somewhere else for a while, or when I go on vacations or travel, I can edit. When I got the desktop, I had an office space separate from my apartment. So I had an apartment that I could live at, and then I could go to the office to just work on the desktops. Now I work from home, obviously, because we realized renting out an office space and an apartment was a waste of money because it's an infinite bill. There's no ownership in sight there. So we have ownership in sight here, but it means that I'm working from home a lot more. So the flexibility of being able to take the laptop places would be cool. So try to release an 8K video, Drew, and let's see what happens. I will. YouTube supports it, so I'll do an 8K video. I'll import it and everything. I wish transfer would be a bit faster, though. 4K as of itself takes forever to transfer between devices. It can, yeah. It's definitely slower. I don't know why Marquez needs a Mac Pro just to trim a couple minutes of rendering and exporting. Well, he films everything at incredibly high bit rates and codecs with the Red cameras. I agree, it's overkill. I don't think he needs a Mac Pro that high spec, but he can afford it. And like he showed in his video, you can get a Mac Pro to choke really easily if you shoot at absurdly high resolutions and absurdly high storage files like the Red footage does. But Red cameras are just overkill in every department. I think that a Red camera is very unnecessary for YouTube. Red makes really expensive, really high-end cameras that have a bunch of features that people in the film industry should probably use and utilize. Like, it makes sense if you're making Netflix shows or you're making feature films, but for YouTube videos that people are going to watch once and they're like 8 minutes and most of which are being watched on your phone, I don't think you need a Red camera for YouTube stuff. I think Blackmagic is fine, and there's lots of other alternatives to Red that are a fraction of the price that will get the job done and still look amazing. Red is more of a brand recognition thing. People are just like, oh, that's the high end camera. That's the high end one. So they go overkill. Mac Pro is overkill, but I can understand why MKBHD use it. I don't think he has to, but if he's going to shoot with Red cameras, then it makes sense. Why film in 8K in color grade so much if people are just going to watch it on an iPhone 11 anyways? I agree. I mean, you can make that argument with 4K. But in my opinion, I like to go above what most people are going to watch it at just so that I'm covered. 4K at 60 is going to cover plenty of displays and viewing experiences for people. But 8K is just ridiculous. Like 4K at 60, you're appealing to probably less than 1% of your viewers. Probably less than 1% of my channel watches my videos at 4K at 60. But when you get into 8K, it's like less than 0.1%. It's even more pointless. What made you rent that office space? MKBHD owns his new space. Have you considered buying an office? Did he say he owns it? I don't recall him saying that. I'm pretty sure it's in the same building. Buying an office because I always thought it was odd you rented growing up. I was told to never rent, and it's bad. It's not necessarily bad. It's good in the short term, but long term, no. If you're planning on staying in a location for many years, it would make more sense to rent. And buying obviously costs a lot more upfront. There's a lot more expenses along with it. It's generally a good idea for if you're going to be in a location for a long time, buy it outright. If you're going to be in a place for a short amount of time, rent. And when I first moved out of my parents' house, I did not have a long-term plan. I was just looking for something to maybe be an office space for the next couple of years or so, not really long-term. But once we realized, like, okay, we're not going to be moving out of town or moving that far out of state for a while, we should find a place that we can just call our own and eventually own outright. but it's also a lot cheaper because with rent there's not down payments, but in the long term it ends up costing you more because ownership, you can, buy something and eventually you will own it and you don't have to pay for it anymore. But it takes a while, and that long term commitment is hard to picture when you're very early. When I first moved out of my parents' place, I had only been doing YouTube full time for like 3 months. So it was still very, very early. So I didn't want to commit to a giant commercial property that I was going to own outright because I didn't know how consistent my revenue was going to be. I'd only been, like I said, I'd only been doing it as my dedicated job for 3 months. I wasn't going to commit to a lease. Like the first office I moved into, there was no lease. It was month to month, which meant that if YouTube crashed and burned, I could back out whenever I needed. I could instantly move out of that place and I would not be held to any contract or anything. The first two offices we were in, I could back out at any time. So once I realized the revenue was being a bit more consistent, and I realized that, okay, we should probably stop. We don't really need this much space. We have a lot of area to work with, which is fun, but it's a poor use of your guys' contributions because a lot of people were donating and stuff like that. But it was all just going to my background. And when people say what they like about Tailosive, none of them was like, "Oh, your backgrounds are great. Your sets look amazing." And if anything, most people would complain about the backgrounds, whether the soundproofing's uneven or the paint doesn't look right or the boxes are uneven. And something is always wrong with the backgrounds. I'm like, why am I dumping all this money into the background? So just real estate just made more sense. But one day, I mean, this is not my permanent office either. We're still talking about stuff in the future. I don't want to confirm anything because you guys, I can say one little thing and you'll act like, so that's definitely happening. I'm like, no, nothing's definitely happening. But who knows? Someday we might have a different office space that's more than likely bigger than this one. And this might not be the final house we stay in the long term. We don't know. There's all kinds of stuff. Any updates on when you're getting the Tesla? Not really. It's just I would love a Tesla. I think you guys get that. I'm fully behind them as a company. They're great. They're wonderful. But it just makes very little sense for us to buy one because I work from home. My wife's drive to work is not very far, and we got our car for very, very cheap. We're not really spending, well, we're spending a little bit of money on gas, but just the amount of money we would have to spend up front on the Tesla would be really fun, and I would love to have one, but I wouldn't utilize it too much, and it's not really a good use of our income right now. Maybe if we had less debt, because right now we're not done paying off the house, so if we were done paying off the house, it would probably make more sense. So no, there's no immediate plan. Commercial property is risky. Have you thought about purchasing rental property? Gather a lot of revenue. Yeah, we've talked about that. Yeah, we wanted a place for ourselves to live in first, and then we can work on investment properties. But yeah, that's something we've talked about. I'm not talking about buying commercial property. That's not in the foreseeable future. But either way, it's off topic. But we've been live for a while, so I gotta get going. I gotta get to work. But appreciate the Twitch Prime and the bits donated, especially Chris Norton, who was pretty generous today. Thank you guys. And I will catch you in the next one. So this is your Apple Sheep here. Have a good day. Bye-bye.